Broadcasting live from Forward Observer Central Command in Austin, Texas. It's the man always out front on the issues. You're listening to Out Front with Mike Shelby.
Hello and good afternoon. Welcome everybody. It's Mike Shelby from Forward Observer. Listen, I'm trying something new out, and that is an afternoon show, maybe like an afternoon / PM recap to talk about some things that Dustin covered on the daily essay, and then also on early warning, and then things that I find throughout the day. So yeah, everyone in the comments, hey, what's up? Listen, just real quick, it's a trial balloon, and actually, Ben, if you want to maybe put that on the thing, scroller down there at the bottom so everyone knows. If people like this, if it's something that I can definitely commit to every afternoon, I believe I can, which is why I'm here now, then we'll make this a daily thing. And we may do it occasionally on YouTube. Primarily, it's going to be for Forward Observer subscribers over on the high side. With that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. I want to touch on a couple of things that I put into the essay and the early warning this morning. And that's just budgets are starting to come out now, and there's a USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture budget proposal that came out. And Senator John Boozman, a Republican from Arkansas, read through it, and he said, look, there's a whole bunch of stuff about climate change in here, about different policies, how to tackle climate change, and there's not a whole lot about expanding the food supply, given what's going on right now. And so he said the term climate, again, we talked about it this morning. For everyone just now coming in, I'm going to hit some of these high points again. The word climate appeared over 100 times in this USDA budget. It did not focus on how to grow more food, how to bring food costs down. And so we're seeing a lot of misplaced priorities. Same thing we've been seeing, oil and gas and fuel. Everyone wonders why gas prices are high, and it's everyone says, well, it's due to inflation. It's due to Putin. It's due to Putin's illegal war against Ukraine. Well, maybe it has something to do with the current administration's policy on oil and gas. Also, this Shanghai shutdown in China, they've gone through a couple of iterations with this now. This is the latest one. Apparently, they've shut down about half the city for a number of days. There is a logistics analyst now saying that some cargo is going to, quote unquote, grind to a halt. Here's the deal. Last time it was the they shut a city down for a few days, maybe like a week, and they shut almost everything down except for the ports. If we start to see China shutting down ports, if this becomes routine, especially in these major port cities, Qingdao, I want to say, was one of them. And yeah, I don't recall it off the top of my head. But listen, I tell you, I am seeing absolutely nothing indicates to me that prices are going to come down substantially and that any of these supply chains are going to get worked out. Tomorrow I'll talk more about this. I will not be on this show in the afternoon. Instead, I'll do my early warning brief in the morning, economic early warning. I think there's a good case that inflation will start to slow down as we get closer into the second quarter, which starts tomorrow, and maybe into the summer. I don't expect energy prices are going to come down substantially. Typically in the summer, we see price spikes in the cost of fuel. A couple other things here. Let me go through. I'm going through our essay and early warning brief. I just want to touch on a couple things that I put in there, and we'll move on to some other stuff I want to talk about today. Oh yeah, this thing about look, as we really start to dig into, actually Max has been doing this since last year, digging into all the possibilities surrounding what China could do against Taiwan. There's this new report out. This was in this morning's early warning, which, by the way, if you don't get the early warning, you absolutely should, because we talk about this stuff every morning. Dustin, Max, and Dan are on the morning show. And there's a guy named Ching Ming Tong. He's the head of Taiwan's National Security Bureau. And he is reporting that China has watched the Western global response to Russia. That's obviously not news. What is news is that he says he thinks that an attack on Taiwan by China is unlikely within 3 years. And he says 3 years, partly because that is the term of the current president for Taiwan, President Tsai Ing-wen. And, you look at election seasons are almost always more vulnerable than any other time for a country, just in general. And so from my perspective, I think this is likely. I think this is about right. China has massive problems right now. Not only do they have problems with their own supply chain issues, one of the biggest trends in China is they're regionalizing and trying to localize as much of their supply chain as they can. They've seen global supply chains get wrecked during a period of war. If they are going to launch an attack or use military force against Taiwan, they've obviously got to fix their own supply issues. And so they got to bring as much of that stuff home as possible. That's not an overnight thing. They've been doing this for a while, for the past couple of years, just really trying to regionalize and localize as much of their supply chain as they can. They can't do it for everything, but food, fuel, and raw materials. Food and fuel, they're going to be highly dependent on international trade. Here's the other thing. Evergrande just disappeared, right? Everyone stopped talking about Evergrande. And that was because China started pressuring these Chinese corporations to go in and buy the debt from Evergrande. And instead of bailing out Evergrande, and by the way, there's some lingering issues. Evergrande may not be completely out of the clear. But one reason why China could not allow Evergrande to collapse is because that would be their own 2008. And I went back and looked at the reporting back in 2018. I was saying that I think China, due to their off the book debt and the shadow banking industry, there's trillions of dollars in debt floating around out there that are not on the books. They're being hidden in typical Chinese fashion. And China has their own financial and economic bubbles like 2008. And I think there's a good chance that if China were to make a military move on Taiwan, if they faced some of the same type of sanctions, or even if it was just a slap on the wrist, then I think those bubbles would burst in China, and it would be catastrophic for China. And obviously, if we went to war with them, China doesn't want to fight a war with the United States. And then, by the way, it wouldn't just be the United States. It would be global NATO if these countries did decide to go to war. It wouldn't just be U.S., China. It would be absolutely catastrophic for China. So I agree with Chen Mingtong, the head of Taiwan's National Security Bureau. They are, when he says they're thinking twice, I believe him, and I think that's likely to be true. Also, another point on this is capital flight. What we saw in Russia, where you didn't just have Western and U.S. sanctions, you had companies, corporations, banks pulling out of Russia voluntarily. And if we saw the same thing or something similar in China, I want to share with you something that Nathan Carson said. Nathan Carson is over on Twitter. His handle's @ND Carson. He's a head of supply chain and operations for a fertilizer blender. He said the other day that China's not really in a position to move on Taiwan because they will have capital flight. I'm trying to find this tweet that he said here the other day. And it's interesting that we talk about capital flight because Max put in this morning's early warning report. China attempts to stem outbound flow of investors. China is easing investment curbs amid an unprecedented investor exodus. Over the past month or so, there's been a lot of talk about the US dollar losing its world reserve currency status. A lot of talk about it being replaced or displaced. And I really think short term, I'm not concerned for the strength of the US dollar in the short term. There's nowhere else to go. There is nowhere else to go. The United States has capital markets and credit markets, the largest and safest in the world, even after they froze Russian assets. And by the way, I've seen Medvedev and Putin come out in the past few days and talk about how this is a global shift, the beginning of a global shift. And we've seen Larry Fink, and I forgot, there was some other billionaire hedge fund manager that was saying, in effect, the same thing. This is the end of globalization. This is the shift. And Ray Dalio came out the other day and said, "Oh, this is, we were at the beginning of this new world order here." By the way, I just finished his book on principles with dealing with shifting world orders, and that's a very good book. My overall point is, long term, I'm very concerned that the dollar is going to be displaced. No news there. In the short term, I'm just not that worried about it. There's no other places to go. There's a thing called a network effect. And it's like, why are so many people on Facebook? Because that's where their friends and family are. Why are they not on MeWe? Why are they not on, I don't know, Truth Social and some of these other places? Because when they want to go and talk to their cousin's not on MeWe. Their cousin's on Facebook. So they're going to be on Facebook. It's a network effect. It's the same thing with the dollar. There are so many countries who will accept the dollar and they will not accept the renminbi. They won't accept the euro. As a medium of exchange, the US dollar it's the most liquid in the world. Not everyone, but most places accept it. There's so many buyers and sellers settling these trades in US dollars that I'm actually not concerned in the short term that the US dollar is going to lose world reserve status. I'll leave that at there and just point out that Chinese capital markets are small. They really don't have any international credit markets. They're trying to do that through Belt and Road. They're not there yet. And China is just not an incredible, for all the talk about how unsafe the US dollar is, the yuan is not any safer. It is far less safe. And that is a reason why people simply can't flock to the renminbi or the Chinese yuan, even the digital yuan. Also, I've seen a couple things here about Russia demanding, we actually covered this several days ago when it first came out, Russia demanding payment for oil and gas in rubles. And as a lot of people have pointed out, that's a really good move because you create demand for the ruble. And that's why the ruble has recovered. I was looking at a chart the other day, almost to the level, almost to pre-war levels here. I did see, however, that the G7 countries in Europe are refusing to pay for oil and gas in rubles. They say it's a violation of the contract that they have with Russia. And so for all the talk of Russia, Europe capitulating to use rubles, big question mark. I did see where German and Russian officials are meeting today to talk about that. And let's stay in Germany. Let's stay in Europe here, because I've started to see just today, countries in Europe start rationing. Let's start with Spain, because that's the first one I saw. And people have asked me, do I think we're going to have rationing here? And in short, I think the answer is maybe. And I'll get to that in just a second. Spain allows rationing products in case of market stress to prevent shortages. Here's what's going on in Spain. They had a transportation worker strike. And so dairies and some other manufacturers shut down. They said, well, I mean, there's no point if we can't ship this stuff, there's no point in producing it. So they didn't. And so when there's no milk at the grocery store in Spain, that is partly to blame. And that's actually the primary driver of these shortages in grocery stores. But other products, like from Ukraine, sunflower oil, for instance, that's because that whole market has been disrupted. So Spain, up to now, it's been illegal for any groceries or any retail businesses to ration products. And I'm looking forward to counting the number of countries, because it's coming. We've already seen countries saying, well, we're going to shut off exports for a while of fertilizer just to make sure that we can meet internal, domestic demand. We're going to shut off maybe food exports so we can make sure we feed our people. Here's the deal. This was just in a Financial Times. This came out, 6 hours ago. I saw it sometime this morning. Germany and Austria plan for gas rationing over payment standoff with Russia. Berlin activates emergency law as West refuses to comply with Moscow's demand for rubles. It's oil and gas now. It could very likely shift to food. In a G7 statement, this G7 is the 7 largest economies in the world. G7 statement the other day said, don't shut off your, and actually the World Bank said this too. They said, don't shut off your global food trade. You gotta keep selling food. You gotta keep transporting food, and we'll work on trying to fix the problem later. But for now, keep shipping your food. And apparently, if they think everyone does that, then there aren't going to be as many shortages. I think a lot of countries are going to be too smart for that and act in their own best interests. Now, on that topic, I did notice, by the way, we got set up on a new data terminal. And so I'm getting like massive amounts of agriculture news now. Really a really good look into what's happening in global agriculture. Ireland has authorized a wartime tillage scheme where they are trying to pay farmers to plant more acreage. And the farmers saying, hey, 250 euro a month, or 250 euro per acre. That's fine, but I can't plant until I can't harvest. It costs me more than 250 euros to plant and harvest per acre. So it's interesting because government officials are saying that these payments are going to significantly improve food production. And the farmers are saying, yeah, actually, these payments are too small to cover the fertilizer and fuel costs. It's going to take me to plant more acreage. And also, if you think about this for longer than 2 seconds, you're going to realize, the government paying farmers to turn around and buy more fuel and fertilizer is going to increase the cost of fuel and fertilizer because you increase demand with stagnant supply. And all they're doing is pumping up prices and making matters even worse. So let's talk about this. Someone asked me if I think we're going to have price controls or rationing in the United States. If this problem continues to worsen, I've seen a lot of stuff. India is saying, hey, we can produce more grain. We can export more grain. A lot of countries that are saying that they can ramp up production. Maybe they can. We'll see. If this significantly deteriorates, if we move from runaway inflation, I think there's kind of a big question mark on runaway inflation as well, but we'll talk a lot more about that in tomorrow's economic early warning. If these things worsen, then yes, I've seen people say we're going to have price controls. And actually, I want to say that is being considered by the Biden administration. I read that somewhere in like Financial Times or Bloomberg or somewhere like that. So yeah, we absolutely could have rationing or price controls. I don't think that's imminent, and things I think would have to deteriorate significantly before we got there. But you think about the 1970s inflation, the 1970s fuel crisis, and we had inflation and I want to say price control, or excuse me, we had rationing and price controls on some products. Here's the major problem about price controls. That leads to massive amounts of hoarding. And this was not one of the 6 ways. I don't know, a couple months ago, maybe 2-3 months ago, I looked at everything that was going on in the world and I identified 6 ways the United States could end up in a hyperinflationary collapse scenario. Price controls were not on that list. However, I'll have to go back and look, but that's an interesting, there may be a way for rationing and price controls to lead to, frankly, just lead to higher inflation in underground or black markets. That also is going to have pretty bad economic effects, and maybe we see some international investors flee the United States for greener pasture somewhere else, maybe somewhere else that's a little bit more stable. By the way, I'm going to do this show. I'm going to work on maybe like 30 minutes, just kind of hit the high points of things that I see throughout the day. Listen, it's tough for me to talk like this in the morning because the morning I wake up, I hop on my terminal here about 6 a.m, start looking through massive amounts of data. I started putting stuff into folders in my various like Google Docs that we use. And it's tough for me to do the show in the morning, but in the afternoon, I have time to put my thoughts together, and here we are. So just as a reminder for everyone coming in, first of all, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. This is kind of a trial show to see if I actually want to do a daily Monday through Friday 30-minute live stream for everybody. And if you'll watch it, if you get value from it, I'd be happy to do it. And we'll leave that there for now. All right, a couple other things. Let me look through these comments real quick. First of all, Cypher, what's up? Thanks for the what do you call this? The mega support thing. I don't know what it's called. All right, I'll check Discord and see. Thanks for that. Let's see. Man, I'll be honest. There's a question, got any confirmation of the Chechens taking Mariupol? I have not been paying attention to Russia, Ukraine. I really do have my hands full with this economic, financial, global trade stuff, which I've really been digging into. Part of the reason why I hired Dustin is because Dustin's our Europe and Ukraine, Russia guy. That's really much better question for him. I really cannot answer that. Guy Actual says, would love to hear your thoughts on the digital dollar. I've covered the digital dollar many times in my Thursday economic early warning report. The Fed is eventually going to roll it out. They're going to be able to run dual interest rates, like basically a cash interest rate or an electronic interest rate, and then a digital interest rate. And we're just going to have to find, I think, kind of wait and see. There's a lot of ways that could go. I'm kind of in wait and see mode about just how effective that'll be. Is it going to be very widely adopted? So on and so forth. I think, what'd they say? Like maybe 2 to 3 years out. I want to say that Powell said in one of his hearings that he did. All right. Yeah, hit that like button. Definitely help me out. Did I just start for today? Yeah, I just started this show. This is for today, this afternoon. This is the first one. And again, it's easier for me to hop on here and talk about stuff that I'm seeing throughout the day. I'm seeing a lot of yeses for this live stream right on. And actually, Ben, if you can, Ben, if you can help me find the questions here and just post them up for me, and I'll be able to answer. Yeah, make it between 1 and 3 p.m. Yeah, I think so. Honestly, I think 2 p.m. is a good time to do this show. Maybe some will be on YouTube. I will tell you, most of them will probably be for subscribers over on the high side, so we can chat, do a Q&A. And of course, on Thursday, talking for 30 minutes is easy. I mean, it's already been almost 30 minutes, and I've really just covered a few things. Let's see. Ben, you want to highlight any questions or put them in the chat? Do you think they'll keep raising rates? Yeah, absolutely. I think 6 more hikes. I think they're priced in, as they say. I think the Fed has to get ahead on inflation, and what they're going to do is hike interest rates and use monetary policy to try to do that. It's interesting though, because I won't give too much away, but listen, tomorrow I do my economic early warning brief, and Larry Fink from BlackRock has like $10 trillion in assets under management. They're absolutely massive company. And he says he doesn't think the Fed has the tools to combat inflation. So clearly inflation is going to be with us for, probably into the next couple of years at least. And I do think the Fed's going to get to a point where they really can't raise interest rates anymore because of a lot of things. But namely, honestly, a recession. I mean, we're seeing lots of indicators of recession now. I should say a few solid indicators of recession. Probably next year is my guess. And they'll hike. Listen, 10 of the last 13 rate hike cycles, they have hiked us into a recession, and they have stopped hiking rates once we hit the recession. 10 of the last 13. That's 77% of the time. I don't think they break history this year or next year either. You see us going back into lockdowns with new COVID strain. I don't know. I doubt it. Because that absolutely would send us back into a recession if they did the same kind of lockdowns. I don't think that's going to happen. But hey, man, I've been wrong before. I could be wrong now. For financial survival ideas for millennials who are actively or collectively falling further behind. Yeah, that's tough, man. That's real tough. That's something that Ty and I have talked about, or not Ty, Troy and I have talked about. And my next hire, I'm waiting to see if this guy is going to commit. He's employed right now as a financial analyst. If he agrees to jump ship with his current firm and come over here, then yes, we will absolutely be doing financial investment research. That's kind of like the next big thing for us. It is also almost wholly contingent on him jumping over and joining the team. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't provide financial advice. So I'm not going to answer that question right now, but once he jumps over here, we can definitely answer that question. All right, let's do a couple more questions here. Are Chinese lockdowns gray zone warfare? I've seen people say that. Um, Ross Kennedy, I think it's man integrated over on Twitter. He's kind of alluded to that, saying, these lockdowns are really hurting the United States, and so maybe China is implementing these temporary lockdowns to exacerbate shipping and logistics problems. But I'll tell you, a lot of these shipping and logistics problems have been eroded, or have been somewhat, I don't want to say fixed, but the problems have decreased. I covered that, I think, 2 weeks ago in Economic Early Warning. So if you're a subscriber, you can hop over on the site, and whatever day that was, I covered the backlogs at the port of Long Beach in Los Angeles. They're way down. They went from like 20 to 25 day waits down to like 2 or 3 day waits. And so I think they're actually moving quicker than they were before the COVID problems. So let's see. Yeah, that would have been around March 16th. If you're a Ford Observer subscriber, go hop on that report, or go watch that show, and I talk about it. I break it down. Need some more gray zone activity videos. Yeah, I haven't done a gray zone video in a while, just largely because I've been so hung up here in the office. All right, we'll do maybe one or two other questions, and then I'll jump off for the day. By the way, let me know if you like this 30-minute live stream. We can absolutely do this in the afternoon. Not a sweat. Is China using this mostly to go after dissidents? What percentage of real estate buys are being done by China? We know they did this in mass. Yeah. China has been on a buying spree. I mean, they've been buying tons of stuff. I think, I think a lot of it is people just trying to get their money out of China, because it is much safer in American real estate than it is in China, a Chinese bank, or in Chinese markets. I just talked about this and actually Max put it in this morning's report about China trying to stem outbound flows of investment money, and trying to increase foreign investment into their country. The problem is that you're just at the whim of the Chinese government if you do put money in China. And I'll tell you, that's one thing. Ray Dalio is like a huge bull on Chinese as an investment, and I think it's a lot. Just me personally, I think it's a lot less secure than he seems to believe. But I mean, he's Ray Dalio and I'm not. How likely is a catastrophic cyber attack? Here's the thing. If I say it's unlikely, it's going to happen tomorrow. So how likely? On an average day, pretty low. But cyber attacks attempting to cause damage happen all around the clock, like 24/7, like that, by the thousands or tens of thousands. I don't know. I don't know what the actual likelihood is. I don't lose sleep over it. I will say that. You and S2 Underground should do a collaboration. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, that's possible. We have had some thinking about reaching out and doing collabs, like with Bear Independent, like Bear gives us shout outs and stuff on the show. So, I'm really appreciative of that. Bear Independent. Listen, I don't shill for anybody, and I rarely recommend any YouTube channels, but Bear Independent and Viking Preparedness, those are two solid follows. And if you spend a lot of time on YouTube, if you're looking for other content other than Ford Observer stuff, definitely check those guys out. All right. Afternoon show is great. Cool. All right. Well, gang, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Everyone, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you want to subscribe, you should, by the way, you should subscribe to our early warning report. It's in your inbox every morning at 9 a.m. If you like the daily essay and you like the stuff I talk about, you're going to love it. Plus, tomorrow, Thursday, I do tomorrow's talk will probably be 30, 45 minutes on my economic outlook and what the data is showing us and where I think we are headed. We'll talk about hyperinflation. We'll talk about inflation. We'll talk about stagflation. We'll talk about the food. Actually, Troy's doing a deep dive in the food supply here. So that's going to be our major topic for tomorrow. All right, right on. All right, everyone, have a great afternoon. We'll be in your inbox tomorrow morning. Back, Dustin and the gang will be back on the show on the Daily Essay tomorrow at 9 a.m., followed by me over on the high side shortly after that. Until then, be well and stay out front.